Memento Manipulation. The most common reading of Memento says Teddy was telling the truth in his final confession, which would mean Leonard's been manufacturing his own targets for years. Christopher Nolan's Memento, his second feature, premiered at the Venice Film Festival in September of 2000, and was adapted from his brother Jonathan's short story, Memento Mori. Leonard, played by Guy Pearce, has anterograde amnesia and can't form new memories after his wife's attack, so he hunts the killer using tattoos and Polaroids as substitute memory. In the final scene, chronologically, Teddy, played by Joe Pantoliano, tells Leonard he already killed the real attacker over a year ago and has been creating new John G. targets ever since. The strongest visual clue in the film is the Sammy Jenkins story Leonard keeps telling, because it's structurally identical to his own. Sammy's wife dies from insulin she didn't trust him to administer correctly, which is the exact fate Leonard's own wife meets in flashbacks. A single-frame insert shows Leonard sitting in the institution where he claims Sammy ended up, and fans argue this is the moment the film admits Leonard projected his own crime onto Sammy. Teddy refers to the tattoo plan as a puzzle Leonard could never solve, implying he's watched Leonard cycle through this revenge ritual multiple times. The counter theory holds that Teddy is a corrupt cop weaponizing Leonard's condition to kill rival criminals, which is also never confirmed. Nolan has said the answers are in the film for the attentive viewer, without ever revealing which version is correct. Either way, the tattoo system stops being a coping mechanism and starts being a self-designed murder engine, and Nolan built a film where the protagonist is also the unreliable narrator about his own life. Child's infected. John Carpenter has confirmed one of the two men in the final scene of The Thing is the alien, and the most popular fan theory says it's Childs. The Thing came out in June of 1982 and bombed at the box office before becoming a cult phenomenon on home video. The final scene shows MacReady, played by Kurt Russell, and Childs, played by Keith David, sharing a bottle as the camp burns around them. The no visible breath theory points out that MacReady's breath fogs in the Antarctic cold, but Childs's doesn't in some shots. Cinematographer Dean Cundy has said human characters were given a small eye light early in the film, abandoned later, and Childs has no eye light in the final shot. Childs also disappears for several minutes earlier in the film, supposedly chasing Blair, which gives the creature an opportunity to assimilate him off-screen. MacReady offers Childs a bottle of what he calls scotch, and fans note it could be the gasoline MacReady was carrying for the Molotov he never threw. Kurt Russell has publicly disagreed with all of it, saying analyzing the scene for clues misses the point. It's the rare, unresolved movie theory where the director himself has weighed in without actually solving it. Inception. Top. The Inception spinning top is the most argued about object in modern cinema. Christopher Nolan released Inception in July of 2010, and the final shot shows Cobb's totem spinning on a table, beginning to wobble, then cutting to black. The popular theory says watch for the wobble, because if it wobbles, the dream rules are breaking, and Cobb is in reality. Nolan told the audience in a Princeton commencement speech that Cobb walks away because he no longer cares whether it falls. Michael Caine has said the rule Nolan gave him was simple, that if Caine is in the scene, it's reality, and Caine appears in the final sequence. The theory survives because Nolan refused to film the top either falling or staying up, which means the director answered the question by saying it shouldn't be asked. Shutter Island choice. The line at the end of Shutter Island is the only piece of evidence the audience has to decide whether Andrew chose his own lobotomy. Martin Scorsese released Shutter Island in February of 2010, adapted from Dennis Lehane's 2003 novel. Leonardo DiCaprio plays Andrew Latis, a marshal who's actually a patient at the asylum, treated through an elaborate role-play therapy designed to break him out of his denial. In the final scene, Andrew turns to his doctor, played by Mark Ruffalo, and asks which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man. The line isn't in Lehane's novel. Scorsese and screenwriter Leda Kalogridis added it for the film. Lehane has said in an MTV interview that if you read the line as a statement and not a question, Andrew is choosing the lobotomy to escape what he did. Ruffalo's nod to the orderlies in the same scene suggests the doctor understands Andrew's making a conscious choice, not relapsing. Quick note, if you're liking what you're watching, I make videos like this all the time. A subscribe would really help. Thanks. Mulholland Dream. The dominant Mulholland Drive theory says the first 2 hours of the movie are a dying woman's dream, and David Lynch refused to either confirm or deny it. Lynch released the film in October of 2001. It started as a rejected ABC television pilot Lynch retooled into a feature after Canal Plus funded the additional footage. The theory holds that the Betty sections, with Naomi Watts as a wide-eyed aspiring actress, are a guilt-fueled fantasy of Diane Selwyn, who hired a hitman to kill her ex-girlfriend Camilla. Lynch released 10 clues with the 2002 DVD, telling viewers to pay attention to specific objects: the curtain, the ashtray, the key, and the words spoken before the accident. The blue box in Club Silencio is the theorized doorway between dream and reality, where Diane wakes up the moment the box opens. The cowboy who tells Adam Kesher he'll see him one more time if he does good and two more if he does bad appears exactly twice in the dream and once at the party after Diane wakes up. Lynch never confirmed the dream reading, but he built a film with 2 hours of nonsense and 1 hour of devastating clarity, then released a list of clues that point right at the dream theory without admitting he was endorsing it. Donnie Tangent. The Donnie Darko theory only makes sense once you read a fictional textbook Richard Kelly wrote and hid on the director's cut DVD. Kelly released Donnie Darko in October of 2001 after it premiered at Sundance earlier that year. The 2004 director's cut added on-screen text from a fictional book called The Philosophy of Time Travel, written by Roberta Sparrow, the character known in the film as Grandma Death. According to the in-universe book, a tangent universe split off from the primary universe when a jet engine appeared in Donnie's bedroom on October 2nd. The tangent universe is unstable and must collapse within 28 days or destroy both timelines along with it. Frank, killed by Donnie inside the tangent timeline, becomes one of what the book calls the manipulated dead, who guide the living receiver, in this case Donnie, toward fixing the rip. The artifact, the jet engine that appeared, must be returned through the wormhole, which is why Donnie has to die on October 31st holding it. The counter theory rejects time travel entirely and reads the film as Donnie's untreated schizophrenia, with Frank as a hallucination. Kelly has said both readings are intentional and has never declared one canonical, which is why the film keeps drawing new fans. Black Swan Real. The Black Swan theory says nothing in the third act actually happens to Nina, and the clues are hiding in the wound on her stomach. Darren Aronofsky released Black Swan in December of 2010. Natalie Portman plays Nina, a ballet dancer cast as the lead in Swan Lake. In the climax, Nina believes she's stabbed her rival Lily, played by Mila Kunis, with a shard of broken mirror. The shot that should have killed Lily is later revealed to be Nina's own wound. She stabbed herself. The widely cited theory holds that Lily was never really the threat, because most of Lily's antagonism only happens when Nina's alone. Aronofsky has said the entire third act is filtered through Nina's psychosis, and the sex scene between Nina and Lily was always imagined. Enemy spider. The enemy theory says the giant spider in Helen's bedroom isn't metaphor, it's Adam. Denis Villeneuve released Enemy in March of 2014, adapted from Jose Saramago's novel The Double. Jake Gyllenhaal plays both Adam Bell and Anthony Clare, a history professor and an actor who look identical. The final shot reveals Helen has transformed into a giant spider in their bedroom. Villeneuve has said the spider has a precise meaning, then refused to share it. The dominant fan theory says the two Jakes are one man with dissociative identity disorder, and the spider represents the controlling relationship he keeps trying to escape. Chigurh Crash. Anton Chigurh survives every shootout in No Country for Old Men, and then a random teenager nearly kills him at a stoplight, and fans can't agree on what that crash means. Joel and Ethan Coen released No Country for Old Men in November of 2007, adapted from Cormac McCarthy's 2005 novel. Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem, treats his kills as fated, flipping a coin to decide his victims' lives. After killing Carla Jean Moss in her bedroom, Chigurh drives into an intersection, and another car driven by a teenager T-bones him. He limps from the wreck with a bone protruding from his arm, the only injury we see him take all film. The dominant fan reading is that the coin landed on him this time, that the universe Chigurh believes in finally turned the coin against him. A counter reading argues the crash confirms his philosophy. Chaos is real. It doesn't stop him. He still walks away. The Coens have said the film is about a generation realizing the rules they thought existed never did, and the crash is the cleanest visible mystery in a film that refuses resolution everywhere else. Bateman Real. The American Psycho fan theory says Patrick Bateman never killed anyone, which is something director Mary Harron has spent 20 years trying to talk audiences out of believing. Harron released American Psycho in April of 2000, adapted from Bret Easton Ellis's 1991 novel. Christian Bale plays Patrick Bateman, a Manhattan investment banker who narrates an escalating series of murders. The "it was all in his head" theory points to clues like an ATM that asks Bateman to feed it a cat, victims whose bodies vanish, and Bateman's lawyer telling him Paul Allen, played by Jared Leto, is alive in London. Herron told Charlie Rose in an interview that she considers it a failure of the film that so many viewers walked out thinking nothing was real. Ellis's source novel is also intentionally ambiguous, with characters frequently mistaking Bateman for other Wall Street lookalikes. The strongest fan argument is the chainsaw scene, where Bateman drops a chainsaw 5 floors onto a woman in a public apartment building stairwell, with no consequences at all. Herron's intended reading was that Bateman is a real killer in a world too narcissistic to notice, and the theory survives because the director keeps having to explain why it's wrong. Eyes Society. The Eyes Wide Shut theory says the masked party scene was Stanley Kubrick literally showing the audience how a global elite covers up trafficking, and the timing of his death keeps the theory alive. Kubrick released Eyes Wide Shut in July of 1999, and he died 6 days after delivering his final cut. Tom Cruise's character Bill stumbles into a masked ritual at a country mansion that the film implies is a powerful secret society. Part of the film was shot at Mentmore Towers, an estate the Rothschild family had once owned, which fueled parallels to the Surrealist Ball of 1972. Fact-checker Mike Rothschild has said there's no evidence Kubrick knew about that party, and the widely repeated claim that the studio cut 24 minutes of footage to protect the elite is unverified. Bill's friend Victor, played by Sidney Pollack, may be gaslighting Bill about what really happened, and the film never confirms it. Lost Fugue. David Lynch said Lost Highway was about a psychogenic fugue, and fans have spent 25 years arguing about whether that means Fred and Pete are the same person. Lynch released Lost Highway in February of 1997, co-written with Barry Gifford. Bill Pullman plays Fred Madison, a jazz saxophonist arrested for the killing of his wife Renee in their Los Angeles home. In prison, Fred physically transforms into a younger man, Pete Dayton, played by Balthazar Getty, who's released by the authorities and resumes a different life. Lynch has said in promotional interviews that he became obsessed with the psychiatric term psychogenic fugue, a dissociative state where the mind invents a new identity to escape an unbearable truth. The fan reading is that Pete is the identity Fred's mind invents after killing Renee, and the entire second half of the film is Fred refusing to be a murderer. Patricia Arquette plays both Renee and Alice Wakefield, who looks identical to the wife Fred killed, and according to the theory, Alice is the same woman as Renee, replayed inside the fugue. The Mystery Man, played by Robert Blake, knows both Fred and Pete and exists in both timelines, and the fan reading says he's Fred's conscience, the part of his mind that knows what he did. The film's first and last lines are both Fred's voice through the intercom saying that Dick Laurent is dead, which fans read as a literal Mobius loop, the fugue collapsing back to the start as soon as it tries to end. Lynch refused to confirm the fugue reading directly, saying the film is abstract and viewers should find their own meaning. It's the theory most directly endorsed by the director without ever being confirmed, because Lynch gave fans the exact psychiatric vocabulary and then walked away and let them build the rest. Deckard Replicant. Blade Runner has the longest-running director versus star fight in Hollywood history, and the fight is over a single origami unicorn. Ridley Scott released Blade Runner in June of 1982, and the film has seen 7 different cuts over 4 decades. Harrison Ford plays Rick Deckard, a hunter of escaped artificial humans called replicants. The theatrical cut leaves Deckard's nature ambiguous, but the 1992 director's cut adds a dream sequence where Deckard pictures a unicorn running through a forest. In the final scene, Deckard finds an origami unicorn left by fellow Blade Runner Gaff, played by Edward James Olmos. The theory holds that Gaff knows Deckard's dream, which would only be possible if the dream is an implanted replicant memory Gaff also has access to. Ridley Scott told Digital Spy in 2014 that Deckard is unambiguously a replicant, that this was always his intention. Harrison Ford publicly disagreed with Scott for over 40 years, insisting Deckard's emotional arc only works if he's human. In 2023, Ford acknowledged in an interview that he'd always known Scott's view and had played the role as if Deckard doesn't know what he is. Blade Runner 2049, the 2017 sequel directed by Denis Villeneuve, deliberately avoids the question, with Villeneuve saying he respects Scott's intent without overruling Ford. Fans note the 4-year replicant lifespan because if Deckard is one, he and Rachel have very little time left at the end of the film, which fans read as the tragic core of the whole story. The director and the star have been publicly arguing about whether their movie is about a human or a robot since 1982, and no other film theory has that. If this was worth your time, consider subscribing to keep up with future videos. Thanks for watching.